Now, the biggest problem faced with any pyramid construction theory is ramps. Now, various theories exist, straight or spiral, some more believable than others, but evidence of any remaining ramp is scant at best. Now, I had an advantage. If I was correct regarding the JED's function, i.e. as a vertical windlass, there is only one possible method that could be employed, and that is a zigzag system, where a stone is hurled towards the first JED positioned on the corner of the pyramid, and subsequently to a second positioned on the opposite corner. Now a small model was constructed to test this hypothesis. The crook holds the jet in position, and the block has held up what I can only imagine to be a stone ramp. I was quite pleased with myself until someone pointed out a problem, that a ramp system in this setup is dependent on the run-rise of each course being the same width and height. Flinders Petrie's early studies recorded the measurements of courses and the variation in block height from course to course. This resulted in a bar graph that shows a variation in course height. Now this would prohibit a zigzag ramp system to each course. To haul a wider block up successively thinner ramps would be impossible. But it's obvious that the course thicknesses sequences are not random and that they follow some type of ebb and flow based on a method of construction. Now this was a major stumbling block in my hypothesis and took several months of research to resolve. To overcome the lack of width, it would be possible to use a similar zigzag system reliant on the casing blocks prior to them being smoothed. The casing blocks are said to have been considerably wider than the core blocks, and thus their weight could in theory be used to support an inclined angle ramp fixed 90 degrees to the exterior of the pyramid. Now a number of polystyrene blocks were pre-cut and smoothed to form ramps. Each ramp block was positioned above its predecessor, which rested partly on the pyramid casing block and on a support block below, thus forming a long angled ramp, in this case 4 courses high. The length of this ramp would obviously be dependent on the number of courses used, but this method also creates a new problem. The tips of the ramps are extremely narrow, and any load passing over would undoubtedly chip and damage the edge. But the encouraging results from the first experiment gave me the impetus to fashion a larger model and demonstrate in greater detail how the pyramid was built. At the same time I continued to look for supporting evidence referring to stone ramps. Herodotus, he was arguably the first historian, but his work was often attacked in the ancient world for bias, inaccuracy and plagiarism. This earned him the dual title of Father of History and Father of Lies. Now he visited Egypt around 450 BCE and included a description of the Great Pyramid in one of his 9 history books. In a description from chapter 125 book 2 he wrote the following: For the making of the pyramid itself there passed a period of 20 years, and the pyramid is square, each side measuring 800 feet, and the height is of the same. It is built of stone, smoothed and fitted together in the most perfect manner, not one of the stones being less than 30 feet in length. This pyramid was made after a manner of steps, which some call rows and others bases. And when they had first made it thus, they raised the remaining stones with machines made of short pieces of timber, raising them from the ground to the first stage of steps, and when the stone got up to this it was placed upon another machine standing on the first stage, and so from this it was drawn up to the second upon another machine. For as many as there were courses of steps, so many machines were they also. Or perhaps they transferred one and the same machine, made so as easily to be carried, to each stage successively, in order that it might take up the stone, for let it be told in both ways, accordingly as it is reported. However that may be, the highest parts of which were finished first, and afterwards they proceeded to finish that which came next to them, and lastly they finished the parts near to the ground and the lowest ranges. Herodotus was told that the pyramid was made after a manner of steps, which some call rows and others bases. The rows must be the angled ramps, and the bases must be the support blocks positioned underneath the thought. Although one must remain sceptical regarding Herodotus, his description seemed to fit my findings. I also look for supporting evidence in the earliest writings of the Egyptians. The earliest known texts are the so-called pyramid text, found in the tomb of Unas. They are magical spells that help the deceased in the afterlife. These utterances have been categorized. Utterance 365, the earth is beaten into steps for him towards heaven, that he may mount on it towards heaven, and he rise on the smoke of the great fumigation. Utterance 389, Mother Unas, you wild cow and wife, who is on the grassy hill, who is on the hill of the zizi bird, they stand fast, the 2 jet pillars, the broken off steps come down, from where the light comes down.